Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well with everything that's going on. I'm glad you're able to sit in today's presentation. I'm pretty proud of our group here being able to come up with an avenue to present this construction OPD conference. A lot of people put a lot of effort into putting together their presentations, and it's good that we're able to get them out now instead of maybe wait until next year and doing them. I know projects have started, and I know it's not going to have everybody here just because of the way the construction goes. I can understand that. So one of the things I'm showing here is that when I started putting this presentation together, it was back in January, and back in January, what everyone was dealing with was we're all dealing with, because we had such a wet fall, had issues with projects. So I decided to keep this slide just to show that, things change pretty quickly too. For what we're dealing with now, it's wet weather and wet fall really is not such a big issue. I know we still have some lingering issues out there on some of these projects from last fall, and I guess if we can try to wrap those up, we should if we can. I know there's some that you can't get wrapped up. There's more issues than just dealing with a time extension, but if you have any projects out there that aren't in the final stage, or contractors coming back to work to finish them up, let's see if we can try to wrap up any issues we can. That way, when we get going on to this season's projects, we're not having to deal so much with last year's issues. Also, from last year, I just want to thank everybody for all the work you guys did. We got a lot of projects completed. Some of them, hopefully we got them completed, or we at least got them to a point that didn't have a big impact to the traveling public. That's a big issue. We were worried with a couple of them, and we've eventually got the pavement down, and that was a good thing. One of the things, I guess, that gets brought up from the contracting industry is payment. And just so everyone's aware out there that we are required to pay contractors once a month. It's part of the standard specifications and part of our state century code. The standard specification is 10904B, and the century code is 2402-25. It's pretty important that we pay contractors timely. I guess we don't. No one wants to have the DOT have a reputation that we don't. Paying timely is a big reason why contractors bid our projects. They know that we are an owner that pays timely. And I guess I look at it, if it was, me personally, and probably you personally, if you were someone that was paid once a month, and your employer decided, well, I'm going to wait a couple days longer, or even tell you I'm going to wait a couple weeks longer to get you your last month's pay, I think we would all be concerned with that. That's just not something that usually isn't in a person's budgets to be able to withstand that. So I just bring that up. We should be making sure that we're making timely payments to our contractors. I know some of you are probably saying, well, what about certs? What about payrolls? And yeah, obviously, if we don't have certs for materials, we shouldn't be paying. If we don't have I'll say timely payrolls. I mean, they don't have to be to the date, but they should be timely payrolls. We shouldn't be paying for material. But I think what that means is that we need to probably do a better job of communicating with the contractors and let them know, one, when they're being paid, and two, if we're not paying for something, let them know why. And as the slide kind of says, we should be intentional about it. I mean, they should know that you're intentionally getting out there and telling them, hey, this is the reasons why you're not getting paid for material. Project engineers and managers, they should let the superintendents know, team leaders, assistant DEs. You guys should reach out to those regional managers and those home offices throughout the season and have those conversations. I know for a fact, I know when I was on a job, project engineers do a pretty good job of letting their superintendents know, because there's always communication happening. But maybe for some reason the superintendent isn't relaying the information to their bosses, and so maybe we should just reach out up to the next level and make sure that they're aware of why, when we're paying and why if we're not paying. I know construction's working on a module in cars with the NDIT to come up with a email to a project engineer letting them know when the 30 days are coming up. But even with that, I think it just makes good sense and good practice to get out there and visit with those contractors and let them know that, hey, payment's coming, or there's a reason why payment's not coming. The other thing that contractors bring up are NOIs, and I know NOIs aren't anybody's favorite, but I guess they relate to me and to Ron that when they file an NOI, they say our project staff gets defensive, our communication gets strained, and they feel it changes the working relationship out on a job. So they kind of relay that they're reluctant to file NOIs, but I guess we can't take these things personal, and we can't get defensive when NOIs get talked about or get brought up. There are always issues on jobs, and we always and we need to make sure that if we cannot resolve the issue quickly, then to protect everybody's involved, the NOI needs to be submitted. It's protection for that contractor, but it's also protection for the DOT. There's a lot of things that would kick in that the project staff would need to start overseeing and looking into a little more closely if we know that there's an issue that potentially could make it to a claim status. What makes people stand out, I guess, in those times, it's how you react to them, and that's how you can get the issues resolved. I mean, the sooner you can resolve the issue, the better off it is for the owner and the contractor out there. Some other things I guess I wanted to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about change orders and contract time extensions. And I don't see every change order out there, but I have seen some that were to my level, and the contractor had already signed it, and I'm sitting there thinking, well, what if I'm not in agreement with this change order? And it happens. So we shouldn't be giving a contractor a time extension or a change order until the individual who has to approve it has at least given verbal approval for that. It just makes for bad work relationships if contractor thinks that the change order is a done deal, he signs it, and it isn't signed, it isn't a done deal, and you have to go back and change something on it because someone else isn't agreeing with it. This slide here is basically what the cars or the construction record manual has in it, and you can see the asterisk 3 on there. It says verbal approval for the final approval authority is required prior to the start of change order work and prior to obtaining the contractor's signature on a change order. So that is the guidance given. You notice though that project engineer doesn't have that, because obviously they got the final approval on that change order that's less than 10,000 and time extensions up to 5 days. But just remember though, even with those change orders, districts shouldn't be surprised by them. You shouldn't be doing that in a vacuum. If you have a change order out there that's less than 10,000, that you still need to visit with the districts. Now they don't have to give you the approval. You obviously are going to approve it, but any change order that's done on project should be talked about, and districts should be involved with them. The thresholds here are for our DOT owned projects. For city and county projects, they may have their own thresholds out there, but the thresholds that are shown here are for federal aid approval on those city and county jobs. it's most likely that a county has a person in responsible charge that actually would sign that change order or time extension for that county or city. A little bit more on time change orders in particular, but from where I sit, I guess my experience, I guess what I've seen out there, and I've seen a lot of you that have submitted them, some of the best are justifying change orders really have a knack for digging into the issues. They're savvy at negotiations, and it's almost the point where they kind of relish it. I kind of in myself wished I had that ability. I can tell you I'm not the best negotiator. But when you do see those folks out there that have that in them, it's quite a good sign to see from somebody. When I get a change order and it gets to my level, and I start asking these individuals that deal real well with change orders, like I said, did you visit with construction? Did you talk to materials and research? How about federal highway? Did you reach out to design? Did you reach out to ETS? And most always when I'm dealing with them, they always answer yes, and they've also addressed the concerns that those divisions had. They have the ability when they're doing change orders and running scenarios of a negotiation with a contractor. When you run those scenarios and you think of all the things that a contractor could be bringing up if you're trying to get a price down on something, they have those answers, and it just really does help them very well in getting those negotiations done and getting change orders completed on them. I know there's been several change orders that have come in that there's no time has been allowed on them, or hasn't. It really doesn't look like it's been addressed. And when you look at them and you look at the change order and you really say, well, geez, there's probably some time here for this contractor. And I know we shouldn't be worried about if a contractor doesn't bring it up, but what happens is it's an issue that comes down the road, and I think it's in everybody's best interest that if you should ask that question with any change order is, do they feel they need time? That's not meaning that you have to give them time, but that conversation needs to be had with them, or should be had with them, so that that's out in the open. As the owner of the project, it's not our job to justify the change order or time extension for the contractor. They need to provide the adequate reasons of why the change is needed. I guess your job is to take the contractor's information and determine if the costs and time are warranted. You do that by digging into those issues, and you do an analysis of the contractor's costs. Sometimes I've seen some poor information submitted by a contractor, and as all we are engineers, and we want to dig into the issue, and it seems like the engineer takes it on and develops it, and in the back of your mind you're saying, well, who's working for who? So just make sure that the contractors are doing their job, providing the adequate reasons for the change. Your job is to, hey, is that warranted? Is it justified? And can I get to a point where I can justify it to get to a final acceptance of it? Other thing I wanted to bring up is just, it's quality inspections, and I just throw this out there, and it's not to get anybody's ire up, but it's like, I think about it as if we weren't worried about quality on a project, we probably as a DOT would just say, hey, I'm just going to put out a lump sum project, and we just pay for it at the end. We don't have to worry about how the contractor installs things. Just at the end of the job, when they come and tell us they're done, we pay for it. But that's not what we do. We have everyone out there on construction projects, and your value of why you're out there is to making sure that we're getting quality out of that contractor. I took this slide from a federal highway presentation, and here they're showing pavement performance, but it can be anything that we inspect. The better quality we get at the start really extends that life. If you're sitting here and you get a poor quality installation, and here if we got another contractor down the road doing the higher quality construction installation, you can see that we're going to have some extra life out of that job. You know, it's almost like, I think about it as if you buy 25-year shingles for your house and you have an installer do a poor job of installing them. Will you get the 25 years? Well, you know, you might get lucky, you may, but I would bet that over that 25 years, you're going to have more issues that you're going to have to deal with in dealing with that. So I just can't stress enough, we need to make sure contractors are giving us a quality project. I don't know if I got a time when I was out on the job, I was my last year in the pool, and I don't know if it's all about quality, but a little bit. I always fashioned that I knew enough and delved into the spec book and the SPs and kind of made sure I knew everything that was going on a project. And we were building bridges in Ray, and we got done with that. And then the next year, I was fortunate enough to go to the Mina district and run another project, and it dealt with bridges. And we were working, and I come out to a job, and the superintendent's hot. And you can tell something's wrong, and he's telling me that, you know, hey, my inspector's telling them that they got to put some grout in when they're pouring the next pour on a pier. And I was sitting there thinking, well, let me dig into this. I got to go ask my inspector. So I went and asked her. I go, hey, what, you know, Chris, what's going on here? Well, she goes, well, they're not installing the grout like the spec book says. And I said, well, where in that spec book does it say that? And so she pointed it out to me. So I had to go back to the superintendent and say, hey, yeah, spec book says you need grout. And he goes, well, Wade, we didn't do that last year in Ray. And I go, geez, we must have poured that all in one pour. I guess I don't remember. So we didn't do it all in one pour. I didn't see it. I missed it, and it was something that I learned from it. That hey, even though I think I know, I'm pretty good at what I did, but there's things that are missed. So you really got to dive into that spec book, SPs, anything that's out there that deals with that contract, and make sure that contractor's doing what they're supposed to be out there. I know, you know, there's a long list of items that all of you have to deal with on a construction job, and I got civil rights up here as one of them. And the one I guess I really want to highlight, I hope that everybody was able to sit in to the external civil rights training. If not, I believe, and I didn't confirm this with Ramona, but I was hoping that we do have it out there and it's on record, so you could go, and it's a recording so you could watch it. But there's one thing I'm going to highlight, and it's the DBE. Good faith efforts follow a contractor throughout the project, you know, and I guess the DOT relies you folks that are boots on the ground that are watching out for those DBEs, you know, making sure that if the contract calls for DBEs to do a portion of the work, they are doing it. If you're noticing that the DBE is not performing the work, you got to bring that up quickly. It needs to be brought up to the project engineer, and I'd say immediately, because if the contractor is not using the DBE, there is a process that needs to be followed before anyone else can do that DBE's work. And what happens, it doesn't do us any good when the work is completed and these issues have not been addressed. So just, you know, you guys, I think in part of the contract, there's the DBE SP are in there. If the contractor is committed to doing certain work with DBEs, we just got to make sure that they are out there and doing that work. And if they're not, bring a flag. You know, if you're noticing that certain DBE is supposed to do some trucking on there, and you're getting down, you know, halfway through the job and there is no DBE showing up and no trucking, well, you only got half the job left, and they got to get that dollar amount done from the DBE. You got to bring that up. And if the engineer doesn't know, it's your job to make sure that they let them know that this is going to be an issue. And my last slide is basically closers, and I don't only bring this up because closing doesn't necessarily mean finaling out projects. I guess if my boss, I know timely finaling of a project is very important to him and to the department, but it also means a closer on any issue out there on a job that you can be involved with. If a contractor is doing something that doesn't meet our standards, you know, address it, close it out, so you don't have to deal with it later on. You know, we all have worked with folks that are closers out there, and I've had the fortunate to work with several of them through my time, you know, you can just, you notice that they take things on head on right away. They see an issue, they deal with it. They got a knack with dealing with contractors and getting them the ability to work with them and get things resolved. You know, you need to go find those folks when you see them on a job and, you know, visit with them, because those are the folks that really, you know, you kind of want, I always wanted to try to emulate. Now, I can't say that I always was the best at it, but I know when I seen somebody and when they're doing a good job out there, you know, you try to follow their lead and try to follow what they're doing, because it does make for, at the end, when these jobs are done, when you have no issues, that's the best thing for everyone involved. You know where I sit now today, I can easily sit back and when all these things come up on a job, and I could sit and armchair quarterback the heck out of it. But I know when I was out on a job, that wasn't such an easy thing to do. So with that, I just want to, everyone keep up the great work that you do out there. I know that sometimes you kind of wonder, you're putting in some long hours during the week, you're thinking that people don't care, but it is greatly appreciative, everything that you guys do out there, and making sure this construction season is a safe and a good one. So that's all I have, Sharon. Thank you.